Season 2, Episode 2 gives us a lot of fun opportunities to use the moral lenses we've been experimenting with in this class. The episode kicks off with a moral problem. Should I sell weapons to an assassin? We start with a weak but extremely common justification that usually goes, if I don't do it, someone else will. But that's not exactly a justification for the act. The way this justification is expressed in the episode, Morty says, selling a gun to a hitman is the same as pulling the trigger. But Rick retorts, it's also the same as doing nothing. If Crumbopulous Michael wants someone dead, there's not a lot anyone can do to stop him. This is the same justification with minor semantic variants. The idea is, if it's going to happen anyway, I might as well profit from it. If I don't do it, someone else will. The philosophical view being expressed here reflects a form of moral relativism, but could be more properly called ethical nihilism, particularly in the context of consequentialist reasoning. This hasty and common argument revolves around the notion that the morality of an action is contingent upon its inevitability and its perceived inability to be prevented. The justification, if I don't do it, someone else will, implies a belief that individual actions have little to no impact on the outcome, and that the consequences would be the same regardless of who performs the action. But, logically, this argument that it's going to happen if I do nothing, or it's going to happen and I could make money, therefore, if it is going to happen anyway, then I should make money, is a false dichotomy. There are other options, especially for Rick. Rick could choose to stop it, or he could choose to keep his hands clean by not participating. This perspective can be associated with consequentialist ethical theories, like utilitarianism, which prioritize the maximization of overall happiness or utility. From this perspective, the morality of an action is determined by its consequences, rather than any intrinsic moral principles or intentions. So, this could be a loose application of utilitarianism. Since it's inevitable, if I profit from it, then there's more utility in the outcome. But it would be a stronger application of utilitarianism if I asked, will the death of this person cause the greatest good for the greatest number of people? If we look at it as Kantians, we can see that the maxim, everyone should participate in an action harming others when they can profit from it, because if they don't, someone else will, would be a rule for securing self-interest. However, if everyone followed this maxim, it would compromise everyone's self-interest, making it contradictory. That's the first formulation of the categorical imperative, which is the more difficult of the two we've been using while learning this lens. The second formulation is more straightforward, at least in this instance, because it's obvious that we're using someone else as a mere means to an end. For the Aristotelian, it would depend on the context, but in Rick's exact situation, it doesn't appear to be virtuous. Morty's objection that selling a gun to the hitman is the same as pulling the trigger is consequentialist in its phrasing, but it could be motivated by deontological reasoning. The moral theory underpinning Morty's motivation isn't clear yet, but let's move on. Rick and Morty save the assassin's target, a gaseous being that they call Fart, despite Rick's disapproval. If Morty were a utilitarian, it's not clear that his actions were morally correct, since we don't know yet if he has saved a dangerous criminal or a helpless victim. But we do know that more lives were taken in the rescue than were saved. This is a problem with utilitarian and consequentialist reasoning in general. We know and are responsible for our intentions, but we don't know the consequences of our actions until they happen. Before the action of the episode continues, there are multiple opportunities for ethical considerations, but we'll skip to our characters laying low while their vehicle is being repaired, and they discover that their mechanic has ratted them out and says, the reward on your head was too high, and like you always say, you gotta look out for number one. And Rick responds, number one is me, asshole. You're supposed to be my friend. Rick will voice many ethical theories throughout this episode, but he doesn't seem to be committed to any of them. He seems to use different forms of ethical reasoning to justify his own actions, and attack or critique other people's actions. But in this instance, you could say he is expressing ethical egoism, where anything is good so long as it's good for him. After this encounter, chaos ensues. Hundreds of people start dying during their escape, and Rick weaponizes utilitarian reasoning in his question to Morty. Hey Morty, remember when you said selling a gun was as bad as pulling the trigger? How do you feel about all these people getting killed today because of your choices? This is a clear attack based on consequentialist reasoning, but Morty's reply gives us a little more insight into how he sees things. I did the right thing, Rick. He's insinuating that what he did was right, despite the consequences of what looks like hundreds of innocent people dying, suggesting that intentions are more important. So, Morty may be a deontologist in the language of this class. When Rick and Morty finally return the gaseous being to its portal home, Morty, again an apparent deontologist, learns that returning the gaseous being to its home will have the consequence of destroying all life in his universe. Morty was able to accept collateral damage on his way to doing something he thought was right, or morally good, but once he learned that all life as he knew it would be sacrificed, his deontology ran out. There was a limit to his deontological reasoning, the consequentialist reasoning revealed. After all, what value remains after all the valuers are gone? Who knows? Well, beloved Dub Dub.